Okay, 3 steps in protecting college tennis programs. These 3 steps will be fundraising, budget solutions, and community connection. Also, if you like, you can, at the end of this webinar, if you will, I'm going to leave my contact information, cell number, email address. So feel free to contact me about any of this content, or if you're, I can forward you the budgets of some of the events that that I was able to be a part of. Everything from indoor tennis to celebrity outings to camps and all that kind of stuff. So feel free to contact me via email or on my cell phone if I can help you. And also make sure you subscribe to this YouTube video. You can, I think it's either up here or down there. So make sure you're subscribed. So in regards to college tennis programs, so recently 45 programs, my understanding is 45 tennis programs were cut. Now, granted, tennis is kind of up there as far as NCAA sponsored sports. I'll put some information below as it relates to that, but tennis has been well sponsored. It's certainly more sponsored than wrestling or lacrosse programs and so forth. So anyway, so what we got 45 tennis programs that got canceled. Now, why does this happen? It's lack of leadership. I mean, because you either win or you lose, and that has to do with leadership, whatever leadership that is. It could be the coach, it could be the athletic director, it could be college tennis in general. So when programs get canceled, you're competing against other programs, other sports. So recently, I was asked what college tennis programs will be cut next. Now, it's hard to predict that crystal ball, but I would say the formula is if you're a mid-major program, and if the athletic department has more than the NCAA minimums in sports, and we're talking about Division I for the most part. At the FBS football level, you need 16 sports. At the FCS football level, you need 14 sports for NCAA Division I sponsorship. So if you are a mid-major program and your athletic department has more than the 14 or 16 respective sports, and if the program's not connected to the community, and there's complaining or budget complaining going on and so forth, a program might get cut, and this is probably what happened to some of the recent 45 programs that was cut. Now, when I started coaching, all my college coaching, I coached for 25 years, all in the Norfolk, Virginia Beach area. Coached Old Dominion University for 19 years. I coached Virginia Wesleyan, which is a Division III college, for a total of 3 years, and coached Norfolk State, another Division I institution, for 3 years. So that's where my experience comes from, and I was born and raised in this area. So I got to coach all 3 schools in the town that I was born. They're about 15 minutes apart. Well, my first athletic director was Dr. Jim Jarrett, and he was my athletic director at Old Dominion for 18 years. So when he hired me at 27, I guess I was a pretty young coach then. So anyway, I remember going into Dr. Jarrett's office, and I think this was after my first year or second year. I was a little jacked up because we had some success. So I remember going to his office, and I was going, Dr. Jarrett, we need this and we need that, and some more of that and more of this and all that kind of stuff. And he was very kind. Actually, he wasn't kind. He was kind of vicious. So he looks me in the eye and he says, well, Daryl, if I had all of that stuff, I wouldn't have you. Now, that took me a little while to figure out what he was saying, but if I had all that stuff, he probably had a better coach than me. So whatever age I was then, when he gave me that motivational pep talk, Dr. Jarrett, that is, I realized, hey, maybe I'm probably going to have to make this happen without asking for this and that. So anyway, now as far as college tennis in general, the overview of it, and the nature of tennis provides advantages that other sports just don't have. There's human interaction. Tennis has Federer, it has Serena, and as far as NCAA sponsorship, it's kind of like golf. You have small rosters. You don't need to have 30 players on a team and so forth. So, there are some tennis programs that are still being kind of cut or dialed back. However, like I mentioned before, the sport is still well representative. I mean, there's a lot of programs out there. So anyway, so let's go into these 3 steps as far as what it's going to take to keep college tennis programs from being cut or eliminated or dialed back. The first thing, fundraising. Yeah, you got to raise some money, but it's not just about raising money. It's a certain kind of money. So endowments are huge. So endowments are when you raise money that will sit there forever, and the program gets to spend some of the interest, like 5% of the interest, or half. I'm sorry, about half of the interest. So, for example, if you had a $100,000 endowment, then if in that endowment produced 10%, then 5% would go into spending, and 5% would go back into the endowment to keep up with inflation. So endowments are what many colleges are run on, especially like the Ivy League schools. Like Harvard has a $46 billion endowment for the overall university. Harvard, when you look at their tennis programs, usually the head coach position has been endowed by someone. The assistant coach position has been endowed by a family or a foundation. So endowments are certainly helps protect the program from being canceled. That doesn't mean the athletic department can't shift around the endowment, but endowments are really give it some teeth, and they're not that hard to start. At Old Dominion, we started an endowment for $25,000. We called it it was kind of a bake sale approach, which means, and development doesn't like this. We got 100 people to give money, and it got to $25,000 in about a week. And that endowment was named after Frances Jarrett, who was the athletic director's wife. She was very involved in tennis. So anyway, that endowment today is over $100,000. And I'll put the links to these endowments and so forth below in this video. So endowments are key. At Virginia Wesleyan, we experienced a $1 million endowment from the Butch Everett and his family. And that endowment helps keeping the program funded forever. So, and endowments, like I mentioned, can be set up for as little as $25,000, with someone donating $5,000 a year for 5 years to establish the endowment. So some of these programs that are getting canceled, I can assure you they don't have endowments. And so endowments are definitely an important part of that fundraising. So you have your annual money that comes in, goes out. Someone gives you $1,000, you spend $1,000. Another person gives you $3,000, you're spending $3,000. But endowments, they might not help you right away, but they create everlasting programs. And again, you can study the Ivy League model for how that exists. Also, facilities. Facilities are important as far as fundraising. That doesn't happen overnight, but we'll get into that when we get into the community connection. But facilities at Old Dominion University, we were able to build a $7.5 million indoor tennis facility, and that facility now, according to the current athletic director, Dr. Seelick, I believe he told me that facility is the 3rd largest revenue producer in the athletic department, football being first and men's basketball being second, and that tennis facility being third. and it might probably has gross revenue of $500,000. So that facility is not just being used by the college tennis team, but it's also being used by the community as far as and leagues and contract time and lessons and events like that. So it's a community. It's a facility. The Folk Stevens Indoor is open to the public as far as memberships and so forth. Now, and then that facility, that facility has helped produce other fundraising opportunities. I know the tennis teams have been involved in alumni functions and some donors and ambassadors have helped set up other events in there to produce revenue or donations to the tennis program. So now not everybody can build an indoor tennis facility overnight, but it'll come back down to the community connection. That facility was built by the community for the most part. And our lead donor, Gray Folks, and his friend Ricky Stevens, that was a $1 million gift. And I remember Gray Folks telling me when this $1 million, they had played with with the Old Dominion tennis players in pro-ams and events, and been around the tennis program. Some of the players, I think, stayed in the summer, and there was member guest tournaments and other interactions. So I remember Gray telling me that he goes, I don't even understand why I'm doing this $1 million gift. I didn't even go to Old Dominion. He goes, I went to Clemson. And I remember looking at Gray and saying, well, Gray, sometimes, we got to take money from the devil to do God's work around here. I can't really help the fact that you didn't go to Old Dominion, and I can look over this situation that you went to Clemson. So that was sort of tongue-in-cheek, but it's actually quite accurate. Because when you're building in this fundraising, if your university has a very high acceptance rate, often it's not just alumni; it's the community that's giving and being a part of this program, as far as fundraising opportunities there. So and then at Virginia Wesleyan, the $1 million endowment that was given to the tennis program by Butch Everett, I'd ask him, hey, Butch, what, other than my wonderful existence being the coach, what was the second best reason as far as doing this endowment? And Butch went to NC State, and he said, he goes, here at Virginia Wesleyan, in this tennis program, I think I can make a difference. And I think this money makes a big difference. And I said, you're right, it does make a big difference. So within communities, even though you might not have alumni that go there, this tennis due to the specialness of the sport, people can become very philanthropic in your community as far as these fundraising opportunities. In addition, other ideas as far as fundraising, raffles, celebrity tennis appearances. We did celebrity tennis appearances with Nick Bollettieri. We did with Vic Braden, the Jensen brothers, Mats Wilander. Who else did we do? We had Mats Wilander, the Jensens. I think I just mentioned those. And also Dennis Vandermeer when he was alive. So we brought them in and did different clinics, not just at our campus, but throughout the community, because now you're bringing in these people and you're helping other tennis programs in the area. So and other clubs by taking these people around town, these tennis celebrities. And that served us well because it helped us. One, we made money off of those situations. Two, donor engagement was huge with this, and branding was huge. And in fact, at Old Dominion, our community became pretty strong. That see, I'm looking up there to see what years it was, but it ended up us ended up having a chance at a tennis exhibition. We had James Blake, and this was about 2007, 8, and 9. We ended up with James Blake against Andy Roddick, and that money raised money for local the fight against cancer. and it was called Anthem Live. The next year we had James Blake and Andre Agassi, and the third year James Blake, Serena Williams, and the Bryan brothers, and some other professionals there. So those events were a result of the community connection that we'll get into. But those fundraising opportunities, that just, it wanted to raise funds, those ideas, the raffle, celebrity tennis appearance. And the raffle is absolutely hilarious. I remember going to a baseball game, and at all baseball games, they seem to have these pro games, they have 50-50 raffles. So people buy raffle tickets, and 50% goes to the winner and 50% goes to the cause. So I've been at functions where foundations like the Yankees and the Baltimore Orioles, they did these. And 50-50 is very common in these fundraising, like golf tournaments. And they do these 50-50 raffles. So at Norfolk State, we did a raffle, except it wasn't 50-50. I didn't think that was fair. We made it 70-30. So we sold 100 tickets at $100. 100 tickets at $100, it's $10,000. And then we had a raffle, and the winner out of the raffle, and we had an event around the raffle, some tennis outing. The event itself, let's see, the raffle winner, first place was $2,000, second place was $1,000, and third place was $500. So we ended up with $6,500 profit, which was helped fund our spring break trip at Norfolk State. So also those 100 raffle donors, if you will, they I think about 90% of them weren't even alumni of Norfolk State. They were local people in the community. So this event was very, we didn't have, it's not like it's a gigantic event in itself. You're just selling some raffle tickets. And so this event of these 100 people within the tennis clubs and the local tennis coaches and pros helped us, created awareness for our program. It made us more relevant in the community. So, and then each time that I would go to take the check to the owner, to the winner, the $2,000 winner, I would always give him the check, say, here's the check, but most people donate it back to the program. And that was about 50%. So some of them donated half of their winnings back and so forth. But it was fun. They got to win something. It was an easy fundraising activity for us to do. Every 10 people we called, probably 8 said yes, as far as participating in the raffle. So those are some of the ideas. Again, you can always call me, email me. I can share these ideas. I have some written documents on these ideas and so forth. So number one is in saving college tennis program, fundraising, endowments, and these kinds of events. I'm not saying just build facilities, but if you can do endowments and create awareness of your program, whether it be raffles, celebrity tennis outing, scholarship tennis tournaments, just taking a bus trip to somewhere, getting some people on a bus. It doesn't matter if you're taking them to a baseball game or to a local museum, but something that keeps engagement there. Also, Top Golf. If you have a Top Golf facility, we did multiple fundraising events in February at our local Top Golf event. It just created a lot of social interaction, and the event itself was a fundraiser that made a couple of $1,000s. All right, on to number 2, budget solutions. So this is where you pretty much got to stop complaining. So if you're going in seeing the athletic director and say, we don't have this and we don't have that and so forth, you're putting yourself on the chopping block right there to get cut. So you have to look at your budget, and you got to be very honest. Like, do you really need to travel that much in the fall, for example? So at Norfolk State and Virginia Wesleyan, I remember looking at the budgets, and there was a couple of $5,000 trips in the fall just to get match play. Just to get match play to go somewhere else. Yeah, of course you need to take your student athlete somewhere and make it a special experience, but put that money in the spring break, not in the fall. In the fall, you can do an open tournament You can do open tournaments on your campus or at a local club, even better. In these open tournaments, your student athletes can compete. Other people, former college players and people within your community can compete. You can have different levels. You can use the UTR platform. You can use USTA, the TDM platform, or you can use like a Google spreadsheet, whatever. Organize play in your community with engagement with your tennis team is you kill a lot of birds with one stone there. Now you're serving the community. You're creating interactions with potential donors, supporters, followers of your program. So it's very simple. When you get people a good match in tennis, a lot of good things happen. And if it's doubles and they're playing with one of your players, that could be a pro-am. It could be a pro-am format. It could be an open tournament with different levels. But going back to the budget solutions, if you're spending money to go away to get matches, but you can get matches within your local community and increase your brand, that's a win-win for everybody. Now, as a coach, you got to get over if you are doing that those tournaments. Yeah, sometimes your players are going to probably lose. They're going to lose to some people that you don't think they're going to lose to, and that happens. But if those people end up becoming fans of your programs and donors, it's a win-win situation. So with these budget solutions, you have to look at ways to have the solutions, not going to the athletic director and just complaining about the problems. So if you have a local scholarship, that's the one we did that. We had a local scholarship fundraising tournament, and our players played in it, and it probably had about 150 people. It made $16,000 to $20,000. And in addition, I ordered extra balls. And now the reason we had extra balls is because I needed the balls for the tennis program. And we also had a lot of T-shirts that had Old Dominion on it. And so that saved me from buying uniforms or practice gears for the team. So that scholarship tennis tournament helped cure a lot of problems that I have as far as buying gear and equipment and so forth. And it created exposure for our program and good matches within our community. The local club, Virginia Beach Tennis and Country Club, hosted that event for years, and now Old Dominion has the facility and they can host a lot more stuff on campus. But so budget solutions, just don't go to the AD complaining, because when you're complaining that we don't have this and don't have that, and if your student athletes are in there complaining we don't have this and we don't have that, when it comes to a program being cut, you're competing against another sport. Maybe it's soccer if you have more than the minimum needed. So complaining can usually lead to elimination of a program. All right, now community connection. So we've already went through the fundraising. We went through the budget solutions as opposed to complaining. Community connection. You gotta be relevant. Your tennis program has to be relevant in the community. Email blast. If you're not collecting email addresses from your local tennis community, your coaches, your pros, and so forth, and sending out information, it could be tennis tips, it could be about events that are going on certainly within your program, but promote events that aren't that aren't necessarily part of your program. I know that this email list that we developed on a local basis is up to 10,000 people, and we used it to promote certainly our programs, but we are promoting all tennis. So whether you're using Constant Contact or Sending Blue, whatever email service there is, develop some content. Again, tennis tips, showcasing a club or anything of that nature. Yes, you're going to have some NCAA issues that you're going to need to work with compliance on. But you can do it. Don't use that as an excuse not to do it. You got to make your tennis program relevant. and emails still work. Social media, yes. I mean, right now we know social media. We know this thing here is this is pretty much ABC, NBC, and CBS, right? Maybe MTV too. So anyway, social media, the basics, Facebook posting of with the players, pictures, community engagement, sharing. I mean, it's whether you're using Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever. You got to be promoting. You got to make yourself your program relevant in the community, and this is free. That's for sure. This is free. So between email blasts, social media, and so forth, and as we touched on before, local competition, fundraising, and alumni events. It's a no-brainer. I mean, that's what the sport is. It has human interaction. You can play tennis. And if you can play tennis and interact, it certainly builds upon your program. Some examples but your players are going to lose. Trust me, your players are going to lose. We have a player who's still in the community here, lives in the community. I just saw him the other day, Johan Varvarud. I remember Johan Varvarud played in an event at Princess Anne his freshman year, and somehow, I think it was doubles, he lost to Scott Pachter, and he was outside telling me how good Scott Pachter is. Now, Scott Pachter I know, but Scott is not as good as Johan. So I was telling Johan, if you think Scott Pachter is good, you might as well fly back home to Sweden. This isn't going to work. So I was a little upset because Johan lost some doubles against Scott Pachter at Princess Anne. But I got over that. I mean, Johan became top 50 in college tennis. Top 50. So on the local level, he played. He gained the experience of shaking hands. And Johan and his family, very successful in our community, and plays a role in raising for some funds now and providing leadership for Old Dominion and some other causes. We had another fundraising event. It was called a Big Man Tennis Tournament. And Tippy Abziller lost in the finals. Now, the only thing worse than her losing in the finals of this thing was I also lost too. And we lost to Ricky Stevens, who's very old. And anyway, Tippy ended up becoming won our first national championship for tennis. And she became top 100 in the world, second round U.S. Open. And she's now the Federation Cup captain for Israel. So there you go. You're stomaching some losses there. But Zoltan Shanade became an All-American in doubles. But I watched him lose to Roy Beskin locally, an old guy, Virginia Tech Hall of Fame. Another embarrassing stomaching loss because as a college coach, you don't want to see your kids lose to these old people. It kind of means you can't coach, right? Or you can't recruit or coach. But once you get past that, you realize this is part of the player development model. Zoltan, like I said, ended up becoming an All-American after losing locally. And then this one was all-time best. At Norfolk State, Flavian and Dan lose to Billy Foster and Britt Visser. That was just terrible. And then after, it was 6-1, doubles, 6-1. So afterwards, Flavian had the audacity to ask me, well, Coach, are we going to play more college? Are we going to play some events this fall against college players? And I remember looking at him saying, against college players? You just lost to a banker, a president of a bank, good bank too, by the way, town bank, and Britt Visser, an orthodontist. Combined age, they're 110. You and Dan are 40 combined age, and you lost to 110, and you think we're going to play college tennis this fall against other people? If we can't beat people that are 110 combined, then we might as well shut this thing down. So anyway, that was local competition. Now, Flavian's ends up, he and his partner ended up getting a win over a Princeton team and ended up being 55 in the country a couple years later. So point being is that local competition doesn't cost you money. Your players get better. They learn how to shake hands with people. and eye contact and interact. They learn some basic skills that will benefit them later in life and your program, and it costs you nothing. In fact, you make money by doing this. Yet you can make money with your program by doing this. So, to wrap this thing up a little bit here, the three things you must do to protect your tennis program and to grow it. You either get better or you get worse, right? You either become more relevant or not relevant. So fundraising, touching on, you got to get some endowments in there with the fundraising. Have to get some endowments. It won't benefit you today, but it'll benefit your program into the future. So Sid there at Winthrop, I feel so bad because his program won a lot. But if it had more endowments there, I don't think Winthrop would be canceled. And hopefully it's going to come back, because hopefully it's going to come back. So fundraising, endowments, they make a difference. And use activities that engage the community. And think outside the box. It doesn't always have to be a tennis tournament. It doesn't have to be a tennis outing. It could be Top Golf. Sometimes you got to do golf things to raise money for tennis. Budget solutions. Second thing, budget solutions. Go in and present solutions to your athletic director, not problems, because problems lead to, after you leave, they're going to decide which program to cut. So you got to be part of the solution there. And tennis, think outside of the box. Community connection, be relevant. Use email blasts, social media, local competition. And have that kind of engagement. Tennis just has that luxury that other sports don't have. Use it. Also, as I mentioned before, if you got some questions or you need some follow-up on this, I'll share everything I have about these activities, these events, this thought process. I have a lot of documentation on that. So if you call me or email, I'll put all that information below there. I'll be glad to share it with you. Thanks for spending some time here this afternoon or whenever you chose to view this. And all the best. Look forward to talking to you.